what can we ask the government to do specifically? Like I understand your promotion of other determinants of health, rather than just curing a sick person. But what should the government do, or what should we ask the government to do on our behalf?
Well,
That's the political side.
yes. And of course, there's a certain immediacy to it. So,
because people can say, yeah, it's our fault that we're getting sick because we're not following what you're saying, the determinants of health. But if there is inequality and economic income, what can the government do about it? If you said there's only 1%.
if I had to pick one particular proposition, I would say to eliminate, poverty.
Eliminate or ameliorate?
Well,
It might not
eliminate.
eliminate completely. That means everybody should make at least $18,000 a year.
Well, poverty is, again, a relative concept. Yes, we can put a certain number of dollars to it, that is the minimum income.
Poverty line, they call it. Yeah.
It will not eliminate poverty, but
Okay.
because some people don't have an income problem, some people have a spending problem.
Right.
There's poor people that make $100,000 or $200,000 a year,
Yes, and they're still broke.
and they're still broke, and they can't make ends meet. This is a different form of poverty.
Yeah.
But anyway, to
The kind of poverty that you want to eliminate is rather having all the basic services provided, perhaps outside of money, healthcare, education, housing, food. If we had that, then how can you say you're poor if you have all those things coming to
people
you?
should be able to make a living in this world, and
But whose responsibility is it to provide them with that work? You said people
Well,
should be able to make a
that
living.
depends on your I think political stance. Of course, a free market person would say, the markets will
Provide a job.
provide everything
Yeah.
that people need. So just let the markets go. Or you can have a more a socialist stance and say, the government is ultimately responsible to set the parameters within which we function.
We have a mixed economy in Canada.
We
so
we
have
do,
both.
and I think there's, from my point of view, government is not a seat of power. Government should be a cooperative effort of things that we can't achieve as individuals.
It should be.
It should be,
But
ideally.
Is it?
It's not.
Okay. What can we do about it?
So, and
We're not going to have a revolution like in Cuba.
no, chances are not, because for most people the life is way too cozy to
That's right.
start a revolution, because they still think they could lose.
That's
I
right.
mean,
Lose
they don't
what
realize
you
that
have.
they're losers, but they could lose what they have now.
Okay, yeah. You don't want to lose what you have. Yeah, if
But-
you have a job and you're paying your mortgage,
Yeah.
you have 2 cars,
Yeah.
and you don't want to lose that.
So
But you
I
think
mean-
that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you go right back to political theory of Karl Polani, he said there's 3 things that need to be considered, and that's the commodification of land, labor, and money.
Okay.
So if everybody gets paid equally,
Mm.
and we have different talents,
Mm.
but we all need to make a living. So the pay should be tied to making a living, not to your social status, to your education, to your whatever criteria.
Yeah.
If you're the CEO of a company and you make 1,200 times more than the janitor in your company, well, both people need to
The same
make a
thing.
living.
Yeah.
And they live in the general vicinity, and the cost of living for them is not that much different. So that's one
Yeah.
part. And if you stop speculating with land,
Mm-hmm.
then
How
we
do you-
we are
how do
very
you-
close to eliminating poverty.
How do you
because-
stop speculating in land?
Well, through a really bold step.
Which is,
Well, you just declare that land is not for sale.
and who would do that? A municipal council, municipality say the land, everybody rents from the city, you pay your taxes, and
I
when,
think that would be at the federal level. I don't know where exactly that decision needed to be set, but
But
you know?
making the land common heritage
Mhm.
for everyone, and when you move, you just move to another house. You can take the house with you, but the land
For
belongs to the
instance,
city.
yeah.
Land trusts, they call it, in some places where society owns a lot of land, and it's not owned by an individual, it's not owned for profit, but it's rented out to people. And that land trust could be a city. The
Yeah.
city could be the land trust for all the land in that city, and just charge taxes or rent, if
I
you
mean,
will.
many
So-
First
so-
Nations communities, they build houses, and the house is allocated to a family. The family never owns the land, they never even own the building,
So it's
but
more,
for generations the
That's
family will live
so it's
there.
harder to speculate with your land later, because
Well, there's no
your house-
speculation of that
Your house
land.
actually depreciates. So if you build a house and $200,000 spent this year, maybe in 10 years, it has depreciated because things go old and new materials are coming up. So the increase in property is basically the land. So if we took that out, you're saying that would be one way of bringing more egalitarian society. The other, you mentioned the money. How do you start people speculating with money?
Well, everybody speculates with money. We
But
put
how do
our money into a bank and we expect interest in return. Well, the bank doesn't create interest. It's somebody else who works somewhere in this world who creates
that money?
that value that we can then receive as
As
interest.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is a very benign form of speculation.
Mm.
But then
Well,
we
why
have
is it
now all
benign?
these financial
Yeah.
vehicles
You mean
that
it's
I don't
small?
understand. And banks make money with money.
Yeah.
I mean, money comes from production.
Yeah. But
And-
even if it's a 1% or 2% or whatever it is, you call it benign. My question is why making a little bit of profit is okay, but making a lot of profit, like a speculator and money exchanges around the world do, why one is wrong and the other one is not? To me, it's just a degree.
Yes.
But the problem is the problem interest rates then? Interest in general.
No, it's the concept that we can make money with money.
That's interest.
Yeah.
The,
That we
what
can
make.
So money doesn't work. It's
Yeah.
it's somebody else is working for us, and so the more we are detached, the more we see the whole financial world as again a vehicle that magically drives. We forget that these are all human relations that we don't know. So, I mean, lending money was always a fact of life, or, well, which means you help out, but as long as if I have more than I need and you have a certain need for money, I can,
Then- then-
lend you
yeah.
something, you finish your house, it's good, over time you pay me back.
Yeah.
But
the problem is
with we forgot that this is what money does. So we're sending it off, and we're expecting rates of return, and we have no idea how it is created. And I think the financial meltdown just showed to us that nobody really understands how it is created. But as long as we all believe in it, it might or might not function.
There was an economist, Kenneth Galbraith, and he said money is created out of thin air. The banks create on their ledger, credit, debit. So you want 100,000, we'll write it here, and when you start paying it back, we'll start taking it all free, and then we come back to zero again. But it comes from nothing. So I heard also in some religious institutions that money was usury, and usury was a sin. So when you said, fixing the monetary system would be another way of bringing more egalitarian society. And I think it's possible when cities start creating their own agencies where they create their own money and lend their own money at no interest. The bank functions just with some fees that the city pay to the system, but there is no interest. Of course, that's a big change, because the banks are not going to take it lying down.
Yes,
they're making a lot of money right now, and they're not going to.
Many of the suggestions that I just offered, they're not easy changes, because they question most of the assumptions that we just unquestionably live with in today's world, but there's.
You mentioned a third one. You mentioned the one was the land speculation, the money speculation. There was a third one.
Labor.
Labor. Okay. So what do you do with labor? How do you avoid exploiting labor?
Well, if earning money from work is tied to making a living rather than other criteria, then we have a start.
So making a living would be a fixed income, like everybody would make, say, 20,000 or 30,000, and
this is one possible solution. Yeah.
Would they call it communism then? Then you'll be.
I have no idea what they would call it, and I don't care what they would call it, as long as the system works, that people can live in dignity and have their needs met. We're not talking about wants; we're talking about needs.
That's right, because people may want more than
they need.
They need. Say, I want a jet plane for myself.
That's right.
And then who's going to provide that? But that's wonderful. So, in summary, what we're saying here is that healthcare is not just curing sick people, but the whole holistic approach of preventing and looking at other factors, which some of them are the three that you mentioned. Polani, you said, was the writer?
Well, Polani and
Karl Marx and
Galbraith.
Galbraith, who said money is made out of thin air. Okay. So what else do are we missing today that before you go back to Switzerland, tell us what can we do here in Canada? Besides making a revolution, because we're peaceful loving people, we believe in peace, and we don't believe in an armed revolution, but it's possible to make an intellectual revolution where people start thinking we can take these problems in our own hands and try to find solutions, even if the big bosses don't like it.
Well, as I said, many things are belief systems. I mean, the financial world is a belief system. And as long as the majority of people believe that this is going to work, it works. The moment they stop believing it. So that tells me that people have actually quite some power